Hello, seventh grade. Sorry I can't be there again. Believe me, I'd rather be there with you guys. We're just going to work through the rest of Heartbeat. We're not going to dig too deep, but it's going to be a mix of I'm going to read it to you through this video, but then the substitute teacher is also there, so you can still have discussions about it. The main thing I want to remind you, though, is that this whole story is all about perception. So, one of the main things we're going to be looking at as we read it is what does he think people think about him and what do people actually think about him? What's real and what is his imagination? Now, to give you a recap of what we've already read, we've already done page 25. We talked about the girl he had a crush on, Sarah, calling him skinny. We talked about him doing all of those, we summarized all of those different ways he tried to gain weight. Eating higher calorie foods, working out, getting rid of, quote, pointless movement, okay? Then on page 26, he got a compliment during the school day. It's like, oh, Dave, have you gotten bigger? He wasn't sure if she was sarcastic, and then he realized that he was wearing two t shirts under his rugby shirt. So suddenly in his mind, he thinks, I did all this work, and here all I have to do to make people think I look bigger is wear a bunch of shirts. So we're on page 26 now. Um, right after the line, I felt like I was reborn. So as we continue going through this, I want you to underline parts where it kind of tells you what he thinks that his classmates think, his perception of what they think. And then off to the side, I want you to make a little arrow with a note saying, this is probably real. He based this on reality, or this one might just be in his imagination. So that's kind of what I want you to think about. I went to school the next day wearing two t shirts under my turtleneck. I felt solid. By the end of last week, I was wearing three t shirts under my rugby shirt. This Monday, I tucked four t shirts under my plaid button down. It gave me traps that didn't exist. My Q tip sized shoulders transformed into NBA grapefruit deltoids. I could tell my classmates subtly regarded me differently. It was respect. Sarah gave me a look I'd never seen before, as if she felt safer around me. I was walking down the hallway at the end of the day and must have twisted awkwardly because suddenly my zipper literally exploded and all my t shirts spilled out of my pants. Luckily, the hallway was empty and I was wearing a belt. I realized I had artificially outgrown my clothes. My button downs were so tight that a few seconds after jamming the extra layers into my pants, the pressure would suddenly bunch the cloth up in random places so it looked like I had a goiter on my shoulder or something. And if you don't know, a goiter is a swollen thyroid gland, so it kind of looks like a bump on your neck. I don't fit into anything anymore, I said. It reflects poorly on you guys. You could get arrested. Oh, he said that to his parents. I just missed that whole line. I complained to my parents over dinner last night. I don't fit into anything anymore, I said. It reflects poorly on you guys. You could get arrested. Jeez, Dave. What are you talking about? You look the same as always. You're still my little boy, my dad replied, putting me in a headlock and giving me a noogie. I glared at him. I need a new ski jacket, I said. It was true. I could barely clap my hands with all the layers I was wearing. I was getting out of control at this point. The four t shirts under my wool sweater were smushing my lungs together like a male girdle. It was a small price to pay. Nobody called me Heartbeat anymore, I reminded myself. So, this was a good place to pause the video because I want you to go back through this page and kind of look for evidence, text evidence that shows what he thinks his classmates think. And you can even make some notes in the margin that's like, oof, this might just be in his imagination, or, well, maybe that could be reality. Um, so just what you think is his perception and what is real. After dinner, I went to a party. Even though it was winter, I opted to hang out on a back porch as much as possible because it was so hot inside. Being indoors was like a sauna, but Sarah was in the basement, so I headed that way. We were talking, and she noticed that I was dripping with perspiration. You're trembling, she said, touching my shoulder. She thought I was nervous talking to her and probably thought it was cute, but in reality, I was on the verge of passing out because I was wearing four tight t shirts and two long sleeves under my wool sweater, not to mention the sweatpants tucked into my tube socks to add heft to my formerly chicken leg quads. She squeezed my biceps. Geez, Dave, how many layers are you wearing? I couldn't even feel her squeezing them. I have to go, I said, excusing myself to another corner of the basement. Everyone was smushed together. It was so hot, everyone except me was hanging out in t shirts and tank tops. I was sopping and delirious and felt claustrophobic. My chest was cold because I had 4 drenched t-shirts underneath my sweater. It felt like I was breaking out with Ebola or something. When I coughed, people turned away from me in fear. Abandon ship! Abandon ship! I had no choice but to take some layers off. I lurched to the bathroom. My arms were ponderously heavy as I pulled off the sweater. Just lifting my arms exhausted me, and I had to stop midway and take a rest by sitting on the edge of the tub, gasping. I slowly peeled off the layers, one at a time. I took off my pants and peeled off my sweatpants too, down to my undies. I dried myself off with a washcloth. My red t-shirt had bled onto the 3 white tees because of the sweat, so they were now faded pink tie-dyes. Oh, this guy. Reread lines 37 through 44. Dave says, my classmates suddenly regarded me differently. It was with respect. Talk as a class about whether that's reality based or a product of his imagination. Or if you're at home and online, just put a little note here off to the side whether you think that they really do have more respect for him. And then in 76 through 113, which we haven't made all that way, but we're going to go kind of like here. I want you to start looking again at how he describes himself. So it says here, underline adjectives Heartbeat uses to describe himself. Remember, at the beginning of the story, we found like skinny, weakling, all that stuff. I want you to find some adjectives now from here that he uses to describe himself and on the next page as well. So let's get going. I hoisted the bundle of clothes and was shocked at the weight. I jammed them into the closet. I'd retrieve them later, before I left. I put my sweater back on without anything underneath. After 2 weeks of constricting my air supply and range of motion by wearing upwards of 6 layers, I was amazed at how much freedom I had with my arms. I felt like dancing for the first time in my life. I suddenly realized what I really looked like at this party, a padded, miserable, and frustrated puffball, burning up in all my layers. All this because I hated my nickname? I got home and realized I'd left my bundle of wet clothes back at the party. I took this as a sign. My days of wearing extra layers were officially over. Had Sarah fallen for the padded me, she'd be falling for someone else. Besides, winter wasn't going to last forever, and I couldn't just revert back to wearing just one set of clothes like a normal human before being come spring. The change in my outward appearance would be the equivalent of a sheared sheep. From now on, I was going to just be me. That was last night. I'm not disgustingly thin, I constantly remind myself. I am wiry. I am lean and mean. Outside, it's snowing again. There's a party tonight, and my friends are on their way to pick me up. I don't know what to wear, so I lay 4 different outfits on the floor as if they're chalk outlines of people. A card horn honks 10 minutes later, and I still haven't decided on an outfit. Maybe I'll just wear all of them. Lot of adjectives he tries to use in this later part to describe himself compared to the beginning of the story. And that was a trick. As you reread lines 76 through 113, make notes in the margin about why Heartbeat decides he is done wearing extra layers. Then reread the story's final line. Do you think Heartbeat's essential personality has changed? Support your answer with explicit textual evidence. So listen, at the beginning of the story, one of the words he used to describe himself was depressed. Okay, and I even talked about him being a little obsessed with his physical appearance. So what, especially with this last paragraph, what evidence do you see that, things are changing? Even with I'm so sorry, this jumps around. Starting with that was last night, I'm not disgustingly thin, I constantly remind myself I am wiry, I'm lean, I'm mean. Talks about getting ready for this party and finally says, maybe I'll just wear all of them. How do you think he feels about himself now? So in number 6, you're just talking a little bit about, I think this is how he feels, and here's the part of the story that I think proves that. And then last but not least, write a brief summary of the plot of Heartbeat. Review your reading notes and use your own words to describe who, when, and where, and what happens. If it helps, even though normally we're going to do this in like paragraph form, make a list with numbers. Here's the first thing that happens. Remember, we're going with big ideas. When you summarize, you're not listing every single detail. First big idea, second big idea, third big idea, fourth big idea. And, try to find some evidence from the story to support that. But I'm not looking for perfection here, so don't panic too much, okay?